So as we all turn into digital and do most of our dealings and money movement on the cell phone, that becomes a lot more vulnerable. So for financial services organization, fraud and anomaly detection today is the number one use case where we are trying to deploy models that would help us protect that data. So that's the number one today in terms of the use case. The second one that I'm seeing, that we are seeing a very large investment pour in, is from an operations perspective in terms of building conversational AI. So for instance, when you talk to your Apple phone today, and you don't want to type, you're lazy, you can literally do text transcription and send out the message to your friends or family. Similarly, today there is ChatGPT. We'll get to LLMs in a minute. But what conversational AI can do in terms of extending someone's capability, say if someone is physically challenged, what conversational AI can really do for you is phenomenal. So there is a huge pour into organizational investments into things like operationalizing machine learning models and making sure our operations agents are able to utilize things like text to transcription, leveraging those transcriptions to do more with our use cases. So there's a lot of import there. Our machine learning and IO group is within operations. So all my time today is spent on making sure that our data strategies are in line with the bots that we want to build to make our customer service agents' lives easier. Because JPMorgan has upward of 30,000, I want to repeat that, 30,000 agent answering phones. So the opportunity size that we have on saving what we can do for our agents and access to real-time data can do for them is phenomenal. We are able to save like millions of calls a year, literally as we speak. So that's where a lot of the investment out is being poured right now. And the ones in the bottom two are more across robo-advisors. So if you're talking about wealth management and investment management arena, for the past, I would say 10 years, most of the machine learning models were based on portfolio management in terms of financial advisory. So we already have a lot of robo-advisors in the wealth space today that are helping pour some of those investments and actually coming up with financial advisory, which is pretty decent. They're trying to perfect that bot today. And then, of course, there's compliance, risk automation, what you can do around automation of documents, right? We're not in an era where we store a room full of files for legal purposes. No one does that anymore. But at the same time, how do we accelerate the automation of a legal or a lawyer type profession, right? So that's again in play. But the top two, there's a ton of investments around, I would say, fraud, anomaly detection, and conversational AI. The robo-advisor space has already always had investments for the past 10 years, I would say. So there's a lot going on there. But overall, within financial services, we're seeing an upward of $100 billion in just financial services use cases on building different kinds of bots. Large language model, LLM, you know it by ChatGPT, Llama, Bard, all of those are coming into play as well heavily, and we'll talk about that in a minute and how we govern those. But the overall within financial services today, upward of $100 billion. We're anticipating across Europe, APAC, Middle East and Latin America, upward of around 300 billion, I would say. These numbers are still old. So as we talk about real time, it's around $300 billion by 2030 is the type of investment we see. We'll go to the next one here. So this one is showing you the benefits and where there is a lag. So as we talk about specific use cases and what machine learning and artificial intelligence can do, this is the kind of revenue that we are seeing within financial services. So for instance, there was an effort overall to find out how much of a front office save can happen within operations, reduction and scaling of retail branches or security tellers or cashiers. Now, you would think that the trend is reduction of branches. Now, I will tell you within our firm, within JP, we are not doing any of that. We're not reducing branches. We are actually modernizing our branches to make use of machine learning and artificial intelligence or building robots to make our customers' lives easier. So for instance, today when you walk into a branch, instead of having 10 people trying to help you for the same problem, we are making it more efficient. So you have a robot that will kind of greet you. It knows it has your authentication. So you come in, you log in with a card. You're already seeing that in the cashiers and tellers already. So you're already authenticated to go into the branch. Going forward, we're looking at scenarios where banks will know already why you're walking into a branch. So imagine we have all your data from the past, all of the history. Say today you've gone to your app and you've tried to see why your transaction was declined. You've tried to kind of wire money and that has not gone through. So we are trying to real time as we speak, actually, I just came out of a meeting, how we can pass all of that real time access data, authenticate a user real time, pass on that data. So both our branches and our tellers know what the background is. So if a bull walks up into a branch, I'll know exactly why he's walking in, and that can kind of save a lot of time, but can personalize the customer service and experience where a bank branch is concerned. So we're not closing branches; we're actually modernizing them to make all of this data available and make intent predictions and use AI to enhance our customer service experiences. And that's the route we're going. So you're seeing between front and middle office a savings of around $350 billion, where you can automate machine learning in terms of KYC use cases, compliance. If you've had a fraud on your credit card, I'm sure a lot of you guys, you receive a text from your bank saying, okay, did this transaction go through or was it you or not? And text us a yes. And all of that is real-time data behind the scenes working for your benefit. So around 200 billion savings in back office alone for underwriting and collections. And then you're seeing some of the CAGR numbers on the adoption of machine learning and AI. But yeah, we're seeing an extent of at least 60% of increase year-on-year basis within financial services on adoption of machine learning and AI. 10 years back when this started, I will tell you, people knew about machine learning, but we didn't know what were the most apt use cases where you could really make a productive sense of machine learning. And in the last 5 years, financial services or insurance or risk arena, they've gone through a radical shift in terms of where we can use machine learning and what are the most productive use cases. So you're seeing some of these numbers here. Around $1 trillion of projected savings in the next, I would say, 2 years. So we're not far. And you're seeing some of the effects of, literally when you go in online today, you can see the effects of AI today. So that's what you're seeing here. So as I was talking through a lot of machine learning and AI, and we covered a little bit when we started the talk on the heart and soul of all of this is data. So this slide, I'm going to take some more time on covering this slide just because it's so critical. When organizations started this journey, they were trying to figure out, at least from a financial services and insurance and risk and healthcare for that matter perspective as well, what is the crux of what do I need behind the scenes to be able to leverage the productivity in terms of machine learning and AI. The two critical factors that came across were data, access of data, sharing of data. So I'll get to that in a minute. So it was data and governance. And those two are hands down the most critical factors where without these two, it's impossible to implement machine learning or to implement an artificial intelligence robot, whether it's a chatbot, whether it's automation of any kind. And so what you're seeing here is criticality of real-time availability of data. And you must have read many articles for it. But the crux of that remains is as much as easy as it sounds, it's very hard to implement on cloud technologies that can take your data from one place to another. So for instance, within the bank, the retail data resides in one place, fragmented all across in disparate systems. You have commercial banking data that lies with some other line of business without any access. There's wealth data that is not. For customer 360-degree view, So if you're counting yourself as a single customer, in order to make sense, or if I had to map out all of the relationships that I have with Chase or with Bank of America or for any other bank for that matter, it's hardly said than done in terms
of feel like it's in the 20s, plenty of layers.
Is that
please try to mute yourself? Go on, please.
Thank you. So as we look at implementing a customer 360-degree view, it's really hard to kind of map out all of the relationships that say I would have with the bank. And so in order to make that available real time, I think the importance of being able to create a machine learning model needs real-time data. By real-time, I mean every second a transaction changes. So every second that you're going onto your cell phone, you go onto the Chase app or you go onto the Bank of America app, and every page you're transcending. You first go to your name, you click on it, you authenticate yourself. That's one transaction. You go on to page one, then you look at your transactions. Then you dig deeper into your specific card to look at what you spent on today. Then you dig deeper into that transaction. So those 6 clicks right there are 6 different transactions that you as a customer did. And we keep a tab of that. And why we keep a tab of that is to be able to make sure we're able to share that data and create an intent out of it to say, what could that customer do? Or what would or could be some of the products that that customer would be interested in? Say my wire didn't go through or my Zelle payment did not go through. I'm going to immediately pick up the phone and call the bank. And for us to be able to make customer service easier for our clients, we want to know all that data. And so every transaction that you do in terms of browsing or in terms of the pages that you're transcending, we know that, and the reason is that. But in terms of real-time data, getting all of that together is a big ordeal. So today I transcended all these pages online. Then I called the customer service center. Guess what? They have no clue that I've done all of this today because it's so hard for me to take digital data, merge it with the phone or IVR data. And that's the biggest challenge that most of the organizations are facing, including us, which right now, that's the problem I'm trying to solve right now is how do I get a customer 360-degree view within retail banking based on all of the relationships. I might have a checking account, a credit card account. I might have 3 debit cards. I might have 3 other joint holders on my account. They might be doing some transactions or browsing some pages on their phone. How do I link all of this together? It's all a data game. And unless I have that, it's not effective for me to build a machine learning model unless all of that data had to come together. And I was able to pass all of that information back to my agent to say, okay, these are all of the pages that the customer or Dimple has transcended on her phone. So you know exactly why she might be calling. And that's a machine learning model behind the scenes to say, okay, this is the intent of why the customer might want to talk to you. So now you're saving all this time, right? So if I'm an agent, I'm saving all this time if I know why the customer is calling. I don't have to spend 10 minutes to ask you, okay, this is why are you calling? Where did you, which pages did you transcend? What do you want to do today with us? How can we help you? None of that. We directly see, okay, Abol is calling. We know what are the pages Abol has gone through online, and I directly transfer him to a debit card department or directly transfer him to a credit card department, depending on the products he owns with us. That's where banks are trying to go to today. And that's the crux of once I know all of the data is in one place, then I can build a machine learning model. So that's why you're seeing a lot of this today. All of the data vision in the center is based on what are all of the capabilities that can be driven, the business ecosystem. So from a product perspective, what is the use case we want to solve? And then what are the KPIs and what is the roadmap for data? So the success of MLAI critically is based on data movement strategy across systems, whether it's retail, whether it's commercial, whether it's technical data, the cloud. So cloud is one space where, again, you hear a lot about cloud strategy, right? Why do you need data on cloud? You need data on cloud for the speed aspect. You need data on cloud to be able to make sure I have real-time access of my customer data. And all of that goes hand in hand before we could really create a model or before we could implement an artificial intelligence strategy. So there are multiple initiatives today, since organizations now know that the data strategy has to be in the forefront before we could really start building a model. I think now organizations are at a stage where they know that, and now they're going to the step 2 of how we can extend the end-to-end capabilities for being able to drive data and analytics to get most ROI, return on investment, for these use cases. So there's a lot on this slide, but the criticality is in terms of, in order to make machine learning and artificial intelligence real, data strategy needs to be at the forefront. It needs to be end-to-end. It needs to be omni-channel, which means that if I'm browsing, like we said, if I'm browsing through my phone on the app, then calling the bank to find out why my wire did not go through, and then again coming back to my computer, which is, by the way, a separate channel. There's all 3 are different channels where we are concerned, right? Where the bank is concerned. So all 3 have different data capabilities, and we need to make sure that all of that data is in one place, omni-channel, for a single customer to be able to look at customer data end to end. So those are some of the challenges that are being faced in the industry right now on why is my machine learning model not efficient, or why am I building a bot but it's not giving me the return? This is one of the critical aspects there. I'll leave some time for questions, so bear with me. This we spoke about a little bit. You're seeing the distribution of cloud strategy. So like we said, I think it's important for organizations to bring their cloud strategy, whether it's in investment banking, whether it's retail or commercial or wealth management. There is more and more, every day as we speak, the data patterns are evolving. The way customers interact with us as a bank or with an insurance company is evolving day by day, specifically on the newer generations, right? If I would ask my son, he doesn't know what an app is, like he doesn't know what a browser is, hardly, right? He doesn't know what an email is. Everything is on the device now, right? So there is direct interaction of a consumer via a text, direct transactions via a text, or direct interaction via a digital medium, which could be a phone, which could be something else. So the interaction of consumers across generations is completely changed. And so for organizations to keep up with it, it's becoming hard. But it's also, cloud strategy, like we said, is one of the backbones of what would make it possible to go omni-channel for different generations. And we've transcended from web to email to digital. Even that's old. Now it's all direct to direct consumption on the phone, right? So if I go to my text, I can do everything virtually on text. So as a bank, we're seeing add more and more ways of interacting directly with a customer. Say you get a fraud alert, it's a text alert, right? You say a yes, we get that feedback right away, and we're able to kind of say, okay, your card is blocked. If it's a fraud, your card is blocked right then and there in 2 seconds. All that is a magic of real time. So I think there's a lot across the cloud strategy that needs to be worked on. But you're seeing, across the world, of course, United States and Canada are the highest in terms of how you're deploying cloud into your workplace. There is a lot of increase on, of course, UK and Asia Pac as well. So I was reading an article last week where countries like India and China are completely, so we went to India 5 years back, and the ecosystem there is completely changed. No one is using cash anymore. A lot more than here, by the way. And everybody is on their cell phones. There are some specific vendors that India has that you can route your money through. So you're in a small shop buying something, and they have a vendor that they use for their payments. It's a payment industry, and in 2 seconds the shopkeeper gets cash. Nobody keeps cash in their stores anymore. because there was, there was a big risk in terms of getting looted, etc. None of that exists anymore. Everybody's paying through the phone. Everybody's accepting payments through the phone and exchanging money on the phone. It's not only safe, it's fast. And the amount of fraud has completely gone down in Asia Pac, because there was a big problem in APAC for the last 30 years that I've known. So the whole ecosystem is changing, right, across the world. The payment mechanisms are changing. There is a lot less fraud in terms of the actual money movement, but there is fraud in terms of digital, which again, everybody's looking to combat. But there's a different kind of fraud. So that's how that's how all of this these ecosystems have kind of evolved. And when we're talking about artificial intelligence, of course, there are varying degrees of maturity. So there's a lot happening within United States, of course, on various bots. We're also talking about use cases that make knowledge available. So I think this is a good time to talk about large language models, right? So today, ChatGPT can read through thousands of pages in a few seconds, give you a summary. So we are using some Llama or BART or ChatGPT, which is OpenAI on Azure. We're trying to use those large language models behind the scenes to summarize calls for us. So all of this talk, say for 1 hour, I did this talk, ChatGPT is able to kind of transcript all of that. We do transcriptions today internally, but it's able to summarize what the synopsis was. How many times did the banker tell the customer to go to a branch? Or how many times did a banker advise a customer to call back? And those are statistics that we use. But out of 1 million words of all the calls that we've gotten that month, ChatGPT is able to summarize it in a few minutes, like 1 or 2 minutes. It's able to summarize all the calls to give me a synopsis. So that's how we're using some of the large language models. It's very, very new, but I know that banks are looking. We have within the firm around 500 already, upward of 500 use cases that are used within Chase to use LLMs. There are other banks that are still slower in adopting. I would say we're a little bit ahead in terms of being able to adopt ChatGPT, but also try to create our own LLM, Llama, on the basis of Meta's backbone, etc. So we'll talk about governance, but yeah, that's another exciting area that you'll see a lot of development in the next 2 years. You'll see organizations thrust upon pouring investments in large language models, not ChatGPT specifically, but I would say large language models in its entirety, and how they can make things faster for the customers. So here's where we talk about governance and regulatory compliance. And actually, as I was coming for this talk, I just read a news where our president, Biden, has just announced an AI governance committee. I think they met with all of the leaders across all of the large organizations, OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, and some of the others, to kind of talk through what kind of governance measures need to be taken within the United States. Now, I will tell you, within Europe, this talk had come through 3 years back, where they were already facing the challenge, because Europe is kind of ahead in terms of trading. So when they started to use artificial intelligence and robo-advisory for trading and wealth management, they figured, oh, this is a big governance problem if we start to build bots that make decisions on clients' investments, right? So within Europe, I think that came up 3 or 5 years back. Within United States, for our retail clients, they're now establishing a governance pattern on what the model could be and what kind of governance does it warrant. So I'll give you an example. For customer data, we are our regulation is very, very strict right now for financial services. There is personally identifiable information, we call it PII. So anything that a customer talks is PII, SSN. For cards, for credit cards and debit cards, so specifically for credit cards, there is PCI regulation. And those are things like ARN, your last 4 digits of the card number, etc. Extremely sensitive information. So when we do projects or when we have use cases where we want to pass on some of this data to a large language model, we're not allowed to. We need to mask, redact that data for experimentation purposes. And so there is a lot in terms of governance. From a data ownership perspective, I'll tell you, head of data, my entire 80% of my time last 2 weeks was governance. How do we experiment using using data that's not real? So say either synthetic data or masked data or redacted data, because we do want to learn on what the LLM can do for us, but at the same time, I would not be able to give approvals on such experimentation. So there is a lot of balancing that needs to happen within business, within technology, within data. And so you're seeing some of that soft law that was established in EU back in 2021. And then for retail and institutional banking, there is still challenges on how we share data. Within the organization, we cannot share across lines of businesses. So today, if I'm a part of retail banking, which is the largest line of business for Chase, we don't share data with our other lines of businesses. Similarly, across channels, like I was talking about omni-channel data, digital does not share with the phone data. Phone does not, IVR authentication doesn't pass through. And so that's why it becomes very hard to open the use case and to have that customer 360-degree view. So it's kind of an antithesis at all times to say how much of governance should we keep and how much we should, keep open, or how much we should let go and how much we should not. So still very strict in terms of consumer laws, very strict in terms of credit card industry and what those laws and what we sit down. Like I personally sit down with at least 25, 30 of my lawyers every week for every use case, because there's risk compliance, C-Core, there's legal, there is a line of business risk, there's a firm-wide risk. So a lot going on there. So some guidance and some, I would say, governance pattern from the White House, specifically for AI, would largely help, because I know that financial services is kind of going through a cycle right now where companies are coming up with their own guidance, but not so much in terms of what the regulation will demand. And there are a ton of questions where audit is concerned in terms of internal, external data. How are we using our customers' data? And I will tell you, for Chase, we are one of the strictest in terms of how we take our customer data. We do not allow anything practically on our data, just because we know the regulation is so strict, as well as we want to be extra careful with it. So like cell phone numbers, none of that. So that's a critical aspect. A lot of dialogue across the industry on regulatory and compliance aspect where machine learning and AI is concerned for sure right now. So this is, I think, the final slide on where personally I'm seeing, looking at next 5 years, some of the overall, where are we calling overall innovation and where are we calling more investments in the next phase? Of course, there's AI right there on the top, as you see. There's IoT, which is kind of old. Open banking has already started. Digital financing. So we are now looking at cryptocurrency, etc., as a phase for financial services where there are no real banks. It's all digital banking. It's all robots, as well as a lot on wealth tech, a lot of investments in compute power and quantum computing. So there's a lot going on there. And also on institutionalizing digital currency. So looking at cryptocurrency and looking at some of the use cases with DeFi on how we innovate at scale. So you, on the left-hand side, you'd see a lot of examples of, how Tesla made it happen. Of course, it's the best combination of software and hardware and how it could come together. And personalization, right? So when you're talking about customer personalization, I gave you some examples earlier on in banking, on the omni-channel and customer 360. But say, for instance, with a car, how do you make that happen, right? You sit in your Tesla, they take pictures all the time, and they take those pictures to be able to customize that whole experience for you while you're sitting in the car. They use that to, charge premiums accordingly. They track everything. So I take a hard turn, my premium went up that month. And this is not an example. It's from the last month from my Tesla. I was sitting and I'm like, oh, my premium's gone up $40. And because I took some aggressive turns. So that's the level of customer personalization we're talking about in any industry right now, and very heavy in the financial services industry, like you're seeing on Amazon, right? Amazon tells you this is what you may like based on your purchases from the last month. We are doing a similar thing in financial services. Today, if you go into our app, it will show you these are some of the credit cards based on your spending habits. So immense amount of investments into customer personalization. Eventually, you will only see on your phone what's relevant to you. You will not see data that is, irrelevant or that you don't want to deal with. If you don't want to look at transactions tomorrow, you won't see transactions. You'll only see your cards and how you spent on those cards. And if you have a home loan, you only want to look at your loan, you look at your loan. So that's the level of customer personalization and customer experiences that I'm seeing for the next 10 years that will continue. So increase in customer personalization, increase in a lot of quantum computing, DeFi, cryptocurrency, a lot of that, and a lot across cybersecurity and governance. And that I think will continue for the next 20 years, the whole governance aspect within AI. Okay, I think we covered quite a lot of ground here. I'm going to stop share and open it up for questions.